Welcome to Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. I am Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, and I am so excited to welcome this distinguished delegation who is here with us today. We are very excited to welcome U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, U.S. Senator Kyrsten Sinema, U.S. Senator Mark Kelly, Phoenix Vice Mayor Carlos Garcia, Phoenix City Councilwoman Betty Guardado. We are thrilled that they have all chosen Sky Harbor Airport to celebrate the bipartisan infrastructure deal. This airport is our economic engine in the city of Phoenix, and the infrastructure deal will help take us to the next level. This has been a connector for so many families and so many opportunities. As Phoenix grows to be a more global city with investments, including our largest and one we've worked with our senators on with Taiwan Semiconductor, to being a place where people reunite after military service. It is a very special place. For me, I was actually at the airport when I found out I was pregnant for the first time. My doctor called while I was here. So many special memories at this place, and it really is an economic engine. Phoenix Sky Harbor has a relatively small footprint for an airport that serves a community of our size in the fastest growing city and fastest growing county in the United States. So we have to be strategic with our investments, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act will really help us go to the next level. Under the formula, we will directly receive $44 million a year, or $222 million over the next 5 years. We'll also be able to compete for additional funding. That dollars will help us make investments in the areas you see today that will help us reduce the wait time before planes take off. I know when I'm trying to bring my 4-year-old and get him on a plane, as soon as the plane takes off, he does settle down, but in that time period in between, there can be a little bit of excitement, so less waiting time is wonderful news from my perspective, and I know that the Secretary may be facing similar challenges twice as big as mine, so for every new parent, a better experience. This investment will also help us make sure that we can begin the process of realigning ground transportation and making so many more important investments. Today, we're standing in the future 8th concourse of Terminal 4. This will be home to additional flights for Southwest Airlines. It will have local shops and amenities. Phoenix Sky Harbor has been recognized for the great food and beverage here, including local beer, local barbecue. You can have a taste of Phoenix as soon as you hit the ground and really begin your vacation when you are here. Sky Harbor is a showcase for the best of Phoenix, from our food and beverage to our amazing views. We've installed new environmentally friendly windows to reduce energy use, but still allow people to enjoy the vistas of America's city with more acres of park than any other American city, and you can see them right from these energy efficient windows. We're gonna continue to make these investments with our strong partners. I wanna thank McCarthy Construction, the general contractor for Terminal 4 Concourse. And I wanna thank Banachke Construction, who's the general contractor for the apron outside of this concourse. We've had so many partnerships. The infrastructure bill is creating great jobs and really being a power for the next careers of the future. We're also working with the airlines that will be in this area to make sure we are investing in the careers of the future. They are working with us to talk to local students in the high schools that the Vice Mayor and Councilwoman Guardado represent along with me about aviation careers, whether it's working on mechanical careers or just how much more than a mayor an airline pilot makes these days. They've brought in the Girl Scouts and other partners to learn about what aviation means for the future. So just one of the many ways that Sky Harbor is really building both the connections of the future, the careers of the future, and in helping support families in our communities. The investments we are making in partnership with the federal government will also include improvements in garage lighting, solar installations, sustainability, and replacement of our traditional fleet vehicles with electric vehicles. We're excited to see the construction as well on our SkyTrain, which will carry 79,000 people per day when it's done, and really help make sure people get a great experience, whether you're going to the light rail or going to the rental car facility. Sky Harbor hopes to lead the way and also put equity at the forefront. We are investing in technology that allows more ADA compliance, including a hearing loop that you can see today, and we're proud to be a dementia-friendly and autism-friendly airport. I know that's something that's meaningful to several of us who are here today. So this is a people-powered airport, and we really look forward to continuing to do even better in that way. We are lucky to have great partners in doing so. Senator Kelly has been working with us hand in hand for quite a while. We are lucky to have someone who is such an experienced aviator. We'll try to explain concepts to him, and he's already ahead and knows about the great innovation, and that is helping us make sure Sky Harbor continues to lead the way. So please welcome our Senator Mark Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor Gallego, and thanks to all the Phoenix Sky Harbor aviation officials here today, and thanks for everybody coming out on this this great week where we can talk about really important infrastructure. I'm happy to be joined here by our senior senator, Senator Sinema, and by our Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. When I was here last, we were only getting started on this infrastructure bill, rolling up our sleeves to work towards solving our nation's pressing infrastructure problems. Republicans and Democrats doing this together. And now I'm happy to say it's law, and it's going to change so many lives for the better here in Arizona, putting folks to work, tackling supply chain issues that are raising costs for families. Our airports are connectors for tourism and trade. They're key economic drivers for our state. This is probably the biggest economic driver in the state of Arizona. And as Arizona's economy rebounds, these airports, this airport, Sky Harbor, will become even more important in our recovery and our growth. Our infrastructure bill provides $25 billion to modernize our airports. And having flown into, either as a pilot or a passenger, to so many of our airports, I gotta say, this is one of the best in the country. It really is. Sky Harbor. It also has one of the coolest names, by the way. But at the same time, it needs maintenance. It needs upgrades, and these are critical upgrades for our state's future. And once complete, it's going to help us create more high-paying jobs in Arizona and welcome more visitors to our rapidly growing state. And this infrastructure bill is going to do even more. It will upgrade our roads and bridges and ports of entry. It'll improve our water infrastructure as we combat this 20-year drought. It'll expand high-speed internet access, and most importantly, it's going to put Arizonans back to work. And as we continue recovering from this pandemic and we face some rising costs, this will put money into the pockets of hard-working families. And that is one of my top priorities. So while we are all celebrating this infrastructure bill and all that it will do for Arizona today and in the future, I stand ready to keep working and continue to work across the aisle to get things done for Arizona, for Arizonans, and for the American people. So it's now my great pleasure to introduce our senior senator, who I have to say, I do not think this infrastructure bill would have come to fruition, would have been a reality if it wasn't for her hard work, her relentless hard work on this over months. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Senator Kyrsten Sinema.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks so much, Mark. It's wonderful to be here with all of you today. You know, I am so lucky to have a partner in the Senate who is so committed to working across the aisle to get things done. And Mark, I appreciate your work every day over these last months helping get this bipartisan infrastructure bill across the finish line. And Secretary, my friend, Pete Buttigieg, welcome to Arizona. It's wonderful to have you in the great state 48, which I think now you'll agree is definitely the best state in the country. But I want you to be careful because you may not want to leave. Yeah. But I'm happy to say that it is finally Infrastructure Week, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you today to celebrate this incredible news for Arizona. Our bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was signed into law on Monday of this week. And as Mark mentioned, I was honored to lead the Senate negotiations, shaped by input from Arizonans that will make America stronger and ensure that we're creating more jobs. You know, for decades, American infrastructure has been crumbling. And for decades, progress on this issue was blocked by partisanship. But our law now makes historic investments for everyday Arizonans, from better roads to stronger electric grids to cleaner water to faster internet. And our plan will create millions of jobs without raising taxes on Arizonans. You know, states like Arizona that are facing historic drought will see billions of dollars to strengthen our water systems throughout the American West. Communities in our state will see historic investments to prevent and recover from wildfires. Land ports of entry, which are key national security infrastructure and commercial hubs, will see major upgrades, including 2 ports of entry in Arizona. And our bill makes significant investments in tribal communities' infrastructure, including all necessary funding to complete authorized Indian water rights settlements. But beyond historic financial resources, our plan includes a significant update to transportation policy, from strengthening public transit in mid-sized communities to new technologies that prevents impaired driving, to new federal positions that raise the voices of tribal communities in our infrastructure policy. And as chair of the Senate Aviation Subcommittee, I also ensured that our law include major upgrades for every airport in Arizona and across the country. And at my personal favorite airport, of course, Phoenix Sky Harbor. Arizona leads the nation in aviation and technological innovation, and our airports are major economic drivers for our state and country. We all saw that as we were driving in or out today. And that's why our new law delivers hundreds of millions of dollars directly to Arizona airports over the next 5 years, which, as Mayor Gallego said, over $216 million coming right here to Sky Harbor. And this funding will not only repair and upgrade terminals, as you see here, we'll also be working on runways, taxiways, and air traffic control towers. And our historic investment will create jobs, improve passenger safety, boost tourism, and ensure that we continue to lead the aviation industry. And I'm excited to continue working with Secretary Buttigieg and a host of federal agencies to ensure that Arizona gets every single dollar it deserves from this new law. Because strong and reliable infrastructure represents a lot more than just pipes and pavements. It represents opportunities for Americans to visit their loved ones, for new businesses to open and compete globally, for veterans to access telemedicine, for children to learn in safe and effective ways. And the bipartisan collaborative way that our plan was negotiated perfectly represents my approach to delivering for our state. You guys have heard me say this before. Folks often say that bipartisanship is dead in America. And we are often asked to accept a new standard by which important policy can only happen on a party line. But we promised Arizonans something different. And it's the easiest thing in the world to just line up on one side or the other of a political battle. But what's harder is getting out of our comfort zones, forming coalitions, making unlikely allies to deliver lasting results. And this law is what it looks like when elected leaders ignore the rhetoric on either side. They put aside those cheap political attacks and instead put their energy into delivering lasting results that matter to everyday Americans. I was incredibly proud to lead this effort, and I'm equally proud to work hand in hand with Senator Kelly, Mayor Gallego, and Secretary Buttigieg, who will talk to us about how he's going to ensure that our law is implemented appropriately for Arizona. My friend, Secretary Pete.
Well, thank you so much, Senator, for your leadership of the negotiations that led us to this infrastructure law. Thank you, Senator Kelly, for your support and your engagement from the very beginning of this effort. Thank you to Mayor Gallego, a longtime friend who has the most demanding and rewarding job in America, I think, being a mayor. And that job has only become more difficult and demanding since I was a mayor myself. But I will say, I wouldn't have minded when I was mayor getting the kind of help on the way from Washington that we now have coming by way of this infrastructure law. Thanks again, in no small measure, to the leadership of the Senate delegation from right here in Arizona. On Monday, you saw so many of us, Senator Sinema and I, among others, on stage with the president on a chilly Washington November day as he signed that historic legislation into law. And seeing that, we saw conservative Republicans, progressive Democrats, moderates from both parties, standing with a president celebrating with shared purpose meaningful and important, indeed generationally important legislation. I think seeing that was not only good for infrastructure, it was good for democracy. You know, not everybody believed the president when he said that with the right kind of leadership and the right kind of engagement, we could come together and solve big problems. But that is exactly what this legislation represents. You heard the numbers earlier. Of the $25 billion for airports, so much will be coming to the very important airports here in Arizona. I could say the same of the over $100 billion for roads and highways around the country. The funding that will help our ports, yes, our seaports, but also our land ports of entry that are so important in this state. Transit, which we had a chance to celebrate with our FTA administrator earlier today as we saw Valley Metro striving for an ambitious vision to connect people in the future, one that will have benefits of reducing congestion and pollution and making it more affordable and easier for people to get to where they need to be. All of this is building toward not just immediate economic stimulus, but long-term economic strength for the United States of America. And I know that it pleased the competitive instincts of this administration to be able finally to note that we are, for the first time in a while, not being outpaced by China when it comes to the pace of investment in the infrastructure in this country as of Monday when that bill was signed into law. This is going to benefit safety, it's going to benefit climate, it's going to benefit equity. It's going to benefit economic development. It is, in short, going to prepare us to win the rest of this century. And while in a lot of parts of the country the story is about crumbling and dated infrastructure, I have to say in a place like Arizona, much more than that, it's about getting ready for the implications of the growth that we see happening and doing what it takes to really sustain that. And that's where I'm always especially delighted as we make these site visits, and we chose this site for a reason, to see the jobs that are being created, to see the hard hats and the safety vests. And the jobs, of course, are not only those that are directly involved in constructing and repairing our nation's infrastructure, but the ones that are supported. You don't have to work in transportation like we do to benefit economically from better transportation options being made available. So we are delighted by the passage of this law, and we are also mindful of the challenge that is represented by efficiently and effectively delivering it. We know that there are high expectations both in terms of the results and in terms of the accountability when it comes to making sure that we take a very, very, very large sum of taxpayer money and put it in the ground to get real results. So with that, I think you'll be seeing us early and often, closely following the progress that's made at facilities like Sky Harbor and around the country. And I think we have a little bit of time for questions, and I'll leave it to Carrie to call our timing on that front.
Yeah, we're going to start with Laura with ABC. Secretary, talking about accountability, who is going to be held accountable here in Arizona to make sure that the funds are being spent for the right projects and not funding agencies or people running it?
Well, it is very important, of course, to have the right kind of transparency, the right kind of accountability. The majority of our dollars go out to state and local partners, and we depend on them to make good use of it. Now, that's where the controls that we have at a federal level, from the Inspector General in our department to all of the mechanisms that exist within my office, are going to help make sure of that. But I also recognize at the end of the day, it falls on us as a department to make good use of those dollars. And I can tell you the President made clear in no uncertain terms at our cabinet meeting on Friday his high expectations that each of us in the cabinet takes responsibility for the effective and efficient use of those taxpayer dollars.
We're going to go to Deborah with Arizona Republic.
Hi, Secretary Buttigieg. We last met on Highway 347 on the way to Occoquan.
That's right.
So I have one question for you and then one question for the senators. I'll make it really quick because I know we don't have a lot of time, but I know that there is money set aside for transportation projects on tribal lands.
Yes.
But a lot of the roads to get to tribal lands are extremely dangerous. For instance, we just had another fatal wreck on Highway 93 this morning. In 347, well, you saw how often there are wrecks there. What controls are you going to put in place to make sure that these vital rural corridors get just as much attention as I-10 and 202 here in Phoenix?
Yeah, this is so important, and you're going to see this reflected both in our discretionary and mandatory spending. We have got to make sure that the spending is equitable and effective, and that includes making sure underserved rural and tribal areas are going to see the benefits. And that is something that our congressional funders and overseers made very clear in the framing of this law. Let me point to a couple of things. First of all, for the first time, we have a $6 billion Safe Streets for All fund. And yes, sometimes that means making sure there is a well-designed intersection in the middle of one of our biggest and busiest cities. But sometimes it means making sure that those rural roads are as safe as they could be. We've come to accept, as a country, the fact that, look, every one of us can picture someone in our lives who was killed in a traffic crash. And we just think of that as normal. It's as if our country was in a war. We can't accept that in the long run, and these funds will help us deal with that. But it overlaps with equity concerns because tribal citizens have disproportionately severe rates of loss of life in traffic crashes, as we saw when we were the Gila River leadership and when I saw you last. So that's where I think there will be a really important overlap between the funding that is dedicated for and destined for rural and tribal lands and the funding that is dedicated for and destined for safety. And we're going to look for that intersection. And of course, we won't have all the answers in Washington. It's why the Tribal Nations Summit held at the White House was so important this week. And we will continue close engagement with our tribal partners and with rural leaders to make sure those dollars are well spent.
Thank you. And I just have one quick question for the senators, a general infrastructure question. You know, we're building a renewable grid, solar panels, wind power, other things. Those are going to require a lot more metal. And we already are seeing the effects of mining on our groundwater use, on toxic tailings. And I'd like to know what positions do you guys have to ensure that this new renewable grid will not be built on the backs of indigenous peoples like the current grid we have now is?
I'm actually really glad you asked that question because this was an area of very specific focus when we crafted the bipartisan infrastructure law. Senator Jeanne Shaheen and I worked closely with Senator Manchin on this effort. In the energy portfolio portion of the bipartisan infrastructure law, we specifically talked about metals and mining and how to be less extractive in the work that we're doing as we modernize. And it's more than just the electrification of the grid. As we also begin to transition to electric vehicles, which is I'm sure are aware, the largest investment in our nation's history in building an electrical vehicle grid and also investing in the technology and the work that it takes to create that electrical grid. We specifically included provisions to be non-extractive, to ensure that we are thinking about sustainability for the future and that we're thinking about how to do this in a way that is sustainable in the long term. You'll also see that we're continuing to talk about this issue as we're working on the next piece of legislation, which is the Build Back Better, still under negotiation. There are additional provisions regarding electric vehicles, electrification of the grid, and the larger issue of EV and solar as we move forward. The last point I'll make is that as we were working through this legislation, specifically targeting this, we also talked about the need to partner another piece of legislation that I've been working on for years. Senator Kelly is also working on this, and that's legislation that ensures that at the U.S. level that we're managing our own microprocessing, that we're doing our own chips, and so that we're no longer reliant on foreign sources for that technology because of the national security issues, but also because of the extractive concerns around the implication of historically underprivileged communities. And Mark might want to talk about that for a second, too.
Well, let me just add that we're a mining state, copper mining, gold, silver, even, one-time uranium. And we've got environmental issues because of those that we have to address. And in recent decades, we've learned more about the chemicals that, and even from minerals and from mining, that go into our water. We just have to be aware of it. We've got to do things to make sure that we have clean water. In this bill was a tremendous amount of money added that I focused on for PFAS removal. PFAS comes from AFFF, which is a firefighting chemical that are used at places like airports, especially military airports. But we can remove that from our water. Clean water, clean air is so critical, and that's why in this legislation we have put a focus on that.
Now we're going to Kristen with the medium size.
Thanks so much. For Secretary Buttigieg, we're moving forward in the process for a new Interstate 11 here in Arizona, and I'm not sure if there's money in this particular bill for that, but maybe down the line. Do you think it's a smart investment to, build a sort of brand new freeway at a time when, folks are looking at more multimodal options at this point?
First of all, I've been hearing a lot about I-11 from your congressional delegation. They don't let they don't let a chance go by without reminding me of this work that's going on. And it is, if you just look at the proposed route, and this is one of the most populous areas in America not already connected by interstate highway. We are very focused, of course, on alternatives to driving. That's why we're so excited to be at the transit opening this morning. We want to make sure this is a country where you don't have to bring 2 tons of metal with you everywhere you go. It's why we're so excited to see the work that's been done here, so that in 2 seats of riding, you can get from downtown to the airport. Having said that, it will always be important to be able to safely and efficiently move cars and trucks on roads in America. It's why we have an interstate system. It's why we're investing over $100 billion in the roads and highways for the future as part of this bill. And so, of course, I will defer in many regards to project sponsors and the local and state leaders who need to be on the forefront of this. But I will say that we have now more funding available, both in terms of the formula funds and in terms of grants that can be used, among other things, for making sure that the road designs of the future aren't the same as they were in the 1950s. I've talked a lot about the equity implications of how roads were designed and how we've got to do that differently for the future. The same could be said of the safety implications and certainly the climate implications of how roads are designed and built. And that's very much going to be on our mind anytime we repair or expand any element of the national highway system.
I'll say one quick thing. The construction of I-11 is really important as a corridor for trade, and that's very, very important for the economic future of Arizona. That being said, it's also incredibly important to use multimodal strategies, which is why in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we created the largest investment in our country's history in both transit and rail. So this represents, at a factor of multitudes above what you've ever seen before, an investment in all forms of transportation so that we can not only help people get connected to their loved ones, but we can also ensure that we're supporting the economy of our country and cross-border trade with Mexico.
We're going to go to Ben with KJZZ.
And Senator Sinema has time for one more question. Sorry about that.
Questions for Sinema and Kelly. The Build Back Better plan was approved in the House very early this morning. Falls back in your court. I know you don't necessarily want to negotiate through the media or anything like that, but could you just give us a sense, each of you, how close that plan is to being something you would vote for in the Senate, or if you're ready to vote for it right now for June?
I think right now it would be bad since we're standing in a Phoenix airport. Totally not allowed under Senate rules. Ben, you were right. I don't negotiate in the press, but what I will say is that I'm continuing to negotiate in good faith with both President Biden, the White House, and my Senate colleagues. And as I said several weeks ago, I'm looking forward to getting this done.
Yeah, I'll say the framework of the legislation, it's there. I imagine this is going to take weeks more to get to the point where we're going to have a vote on it and hopefully get it across the finish line. There is some there's parts of this legislation that will really help Arizonans. Lowering drug prices for seniors being one. Helping families who need it. With child care. I mean, pre-K, 3- and 4-year-old pre-K has a lot of implications throughout our society, but there is more work to do on it.
You talked earlier about being equitable when it comes to spending in Indian country. Can you be more specific when it comes to small tribes and large tribes? And the follow-up question is, how much time are you committed to spending in Indian country, whether it's the White Mountain Apache Reservation here in Arizona or the Oglala Sioux tribe in Dakota?
Well, the point about small and large tribes is well taken. Let me mention that programs that we have in our department, like the Tribal Self-Governance Program and others, are going to be reinvigorated thanks to this legislation. Some tribes have more resources than others. This was another theme that many tribal leaders raised at the Tribal Nations Summit earlier this week. And that means we need to make sure that our grants, our processes, our programs are user-friendly, and that we help build capacity in those tribes that are smaller. There are 574 enrolled tribes in the U.S. Not all of them have interstate presence. Not all of them have a staffed Washington office. Not all of them have gaming revenue. There are so many differences among those 574. And I can tell you this legislation also elevates to the level of Assistant Secretary, a position that is now already very important in our organization, which is our lead official for tribal affairs. And that will be somebody who will be dedicated full-time to making sure that we have the right kind of touch points so that our department is user-friendly for the largest and the smallest tribal partner, because ultimately it will fall to them to deliver in so many ways on the funding that we have here. Thanks again, everybody, for coming out.